what childbirth was really like in the Middle Ages. You think you know pain, you think you know fear, but you have never stood at the mouth of the grave with your legs open and your mother's mother's hands inside you, pulling a soul out of the dark. I was 12 when I first saw a woman die birthing. Not 12 in years, 12 in understanding. I had already bled, so I was a woman. That is how it worked. The blood came, and the village priest smiled with half his teeth missing and said, "Now you are ready for God's purpose." My mother slapped him. Not hard, just enough. She said she is a child, but the priest only shrugged. Because what did it matter? A child's hips, a woman's blood. The same grave waits for both. Let me tell you what songs, not the tapestries with the Virgin smiling in a clean blue gown while angels hold towels. No, I will tell you about the blood that turned the straw black. I will tell you about the teeth marks on the leather strap. I will tell you about the women who came when you called their names at midnight, and the women who did not come back because they had already been called by someone louder. You want to know about childbirth in the Middle Ages? Then first you must understand this. Every single time a woman squatted over that birthing stool, she wrote her own death warrant with her own water. And still they did it. Because the baby came anyway. Because the belly swelled anyway. Because the village had to have more hands for the harvest, more backs to plow, more mouths to feed the worms and the lords and the endless hungry earth. So you did it. You opened your legs and you prayed to Saint Margaret, and you hoped that this time, maybe this time, the angel would pass over your door. The first month, when you knew before anyone else. The sickness comes not in the morning, as they say. Morning is for work. The sickness comes when you smell the pig slop, when your husband's breath turns your stomach, even though you loved that breath last month. When the ale tastes like copper and the bread feels like moss in your throat. You do not tell him right away. Not because you are afraid, because you are calculating. If you tell him too soon and then lose it, and God knows half of them go before the first snow, he will look at you different, not angry, worse, pitying, like a cow that failed to calf, like a field that gave rot in sky. So you wait, you count your moons, you feel your breasts change, heavier, wrong, the nipples darkening like bruises. You tie a piece of linen around your belly when you work in the fields, so the other women do not see the small swelling. But they see. They always see. Agnes from the next croft catches you bending for turnips, and she just nods, just once. A nod that says, "I know. I'll bring the herbs when the time comes," and you nod back. And that is your first conversation about the life inside you. No midwife yet, no priest, no husband. Just a nod between two women who have both squatted in the blood straw and lived to tell about it. The second month, the quickening. They say life begins when you feel it move. The church says life begins at the first breath out of the womb. That is why they do not baptize the belly. Why they let the unbaptized dead lie in unconsecrated ground at the crossroads with a stake through their tiny hearts. But the women know different. The women know life begins when something flips inside you like a fish in a shallow pond. That is the quickening. That is the moment you stop being one body and become two. I felt mine at dusk. I was grinding barley. The stone was heavy. The dust made me cough, and then there, a flutter, a turn, like a moth trapped under my skin. I stopped grinding. I put my hand on my belly, and I said out loud to no one, "So, you are real then?" That night I told my husband. He was mending the fence. I waited until he hammered the last nail. Men are better with news when their hands are empty. "I am with child," I said. He looked at me, then at my belly, then back at me. He did not smile. He did not frown. He just said, "Is it yours?" A joke. A stupid joke. But I did not laugh. You do not joke about the paternity of a child when the Lord still has the right of the first night in some villages. You do not joke when the priest comes to hear confessions with his hands where they should not go. You do not joke when your own husband was gone for the harvest and you were alone, and the traveling merchant had kind eyes and a silver ring. "It is yours," I said, and I prayed it was true. He nodded. Then we pray for a boy. Of course. Always a boy. A boy to hold the land. A boy to carry the name. A boy to close your eyes when you die. A girl is a dowry. A girl is a negotiation. A girl is a prayer to Saint Anne for a boy next time. But I did not pray for a boy. I prayed for a baby that lived, because I had seen too many that did not. I had seen the tiny bundles carried to the crossroads before dawn. I had heard the mother screaming not in labor but in loss. So no, I did not pray for a boy. I prayed for breath, the 3rd month, the bleeding scare. Every woman bleeds sometime, not the bloody show at the end, not the birth blood, the wrong blood, the blood that comes too early, too bright, too much. I was drawing water from the well. I lifted the bucket. I felt a pull, and then warm, wet, down my leg. I did not scream. Screaming brings people. People bring questions. Questions bring the priest with his holy water and his holy judgment. I just set down the bucket. I walked to the woods. I found a mossy log. I pulled up my shift and I looked. Red, not brown, not pink. Red like a cut, like a wound. I sat there for an hour. Maybe 2. The sun moved. The flies found me. And I waited to see if I would stop bleeding or if my child would leave me through my own thighs. It stopped. Slowly. The red became pink. The pink became brown. The brown became nothing. I went home. I did not tell my husband. I told Agnes. Agnes gave me a tea made from lady's mantle and shepherd's purse and something she called the root of the red mother. It tasted like dirt and sin. I drank it. I did not bleed again. Agnes said, "You almost lost it." "I know," I said. "Next time you might not be lucky." "I know," I said. "Then why are you smiling?" Because I had felt it again. In the woods. While I bled, the flutter, the fish, the moth, still there, still alive, still kicking. "That's why," I said. Agnes shook her head, but she smiled too. Women are stupid that way. We love what tries to kill us. The 4th month. The telling. You cannot hide a belly after 4 months. Not from the village. Not from the Lord's reeve who counts the hands available for haying. Not from the church, which wants its tithe on every living soul. So you tell. Formally. You go to the priest's house. Not the church. The church is for Sundays and funerals. The priest's house is for business. And you stand in front of him with your hands folded and your eyes down. "I am with child," you say. The priest looks at your belly. He looks at your husband, who is standing behind you. He looks at his ledger. "Name the father," the priest says. "My husband," you say. The priest writes something. You cannot read. It could say anything. It could say whore. It could say blessed. You will never know. The church will pray for a safe delivery, the priest says. That is the custom. That is the lie. The church will pray for your soul, not your body. Your body is already damned. Eve saw to that. Every labor pain is God reminding you that your great-great-great-grandmother ate an apple. That is the theology. That is the comfort. Then the priest asks for a fee. A chicken, a length of wool, a silver penny if you have it, for the prayers, for the candles, for the oil. You give it. You have no choice. And you leave and you think, if God wants to punish me for Eve, why did he give me a womb? But you do not say that out loud. That is heresy, and heresy burns the 5th month. The cravings. The books say pregnant women craved pickles and honey. The books are written by men who never watched a woman eat charcoal in the 5th month because her blood tasted like iron and her teeth felt loose, and the charcoal made it stop. I craved earth. Not soil, earth. The dark, crumbly dirt from the edge of the stream where the watercress grew. I would go there at dawn when no one could see me. I would scoop a handful. I would eat it. I would feel my body say yes. Agnes caught me once. She did not scold. She just nodded and said, "You are low on iron. I will bring you nettle tea." "Why does my body want dirt?" I asked. "Because your body is stupid," she said, "and because the baby is taking everything you have, your teeth, your hair, your bones. The baby does not care if you live. The baby only cares that it lives." That was the first time I understood. I am not having a baby. I am being eaten from the inside. I ate the nettle tea. I ate the charcoal anyway. I ate eggs when we could afford them. I ate the marrow from the bones of the pig we slaughtered for Michaelmas, and I grew. And the baby grew. When somewhere inside me, a small tyrant was stealing my calcium and my courage and my future. The 6th month, the women's circle. Around the 6th month, you are brought into the circle, not by invitation, by observation. The older women, the ones who have buried husbands and children and still keep going because what else is there? They start watching you differently. They watch your gait. They watch your hands. They watch the way you sit and the way you rise. Marta was the oldest, 70 if she was a day, toothless, bent. Her hands were claws from years of spinning flax. But her eyes had seen 300 births. She had delivered babies in the plague year. She had cut cords with her teeth when there was no knife. She had held the heads of women who were dying and whispered lies about how their children would be fine, just fine. Now, close your eyes. Now sleep. Marta came to my house one evening. She did not knock. She just opened the door and sat down. "Let me see your belly," she said. I lifted my shift. She looked. She pressed. She put her ear to my navel and listened. "Low," she said. "That's good. Low means the head is down. High means the feet are down. Feet down means you might die." "Thank you for that," I said. She ignored my sarcasm. Women did not have sarcasm in the 6th month. They had fear. Fear was honest. Sarcasm was for the childless. "When the time comes," Marta said, "you will send for me, not your husband, not the priest, me. The priest will come only after the baby is born, and only if it is alive, and only to baptize it. Before that, the priest has no business in the birthing room. The birthing room belongs to women." "What about the midwife?" I asked. "I am the midwife," Marta said. There was no license, no certificate, no school. Marta was the midwife because she'd been the midwife for 40 years, because her mother had been the midwife before her, because the village would have died out without her, because she knew which herbs stopped bleeding and which herbs started bleeding and which herbs made the pain bearable, and which herbs made you forget the pain entirely, though those last ones were illegal, of course, because the church said pain was holy. We will need things, Marta said. She began to list. I listened. Linen, clean linen, as much as you can steal from the Lord's laundry. A knife, sharp, boiled in wine, thread, boiled in the same wine. A birthing stool. If you did not have one, the village had one. It passed from house to house like a curse. A leather strap to bite. Holy water from the church. Not because it worked, but because it made the priest feel useful. Candles, beeswax, not tallow. Tallow smells like death. Beeswax smells like hope. A call. If a baby is born with the membrane over its face, that is luck. Save it, sailors will pay for it. They think it stops drowning. Anything else, I asked? Yes, Marta said. A will. Write it on parchment if you have it. Write it on cloth if you don't. Say who gets your spindle, who gets your pots, who gets your child, because you might not be there to give them yourself. That night, I did not sleep. I lay next to my husband, who snored. I put my hand on my belly. The baby kicked hard. And I thought, you little monster, you little thief, you better be worth it. The last 3 months were not months. They were eternities. My belly grew until I could not see my feet. My back ached with the constancy of a millstone. My urine burned. My legs swelled. My temper shortened. My husband learned to stay out of reach. The village women came by with gifts. Not for me. For the baby. Tiny caps. Worn swaddling bands. A cradle made from a hollowed log. A dried umbilical cord from another baby, kept as a charm to make this baby's cord fall off cleanly. Folk magic. Heresy. I took it all. Because here is the truth they do not tell you about the Middle Ages. Everyone was a heretic in the birthing room. The church said, pray to God. The women prayed to St. Margaret, and St. Anne, and St. Catherine, and a dozen local saints the Vatican had never heard of. They buried their placenta under the threshold to keep the fairies from stealing it. They tied a knife under the mattress to cut the pain. They hung a crystal around the laboring woman's neck to catch the evil eye. The priest knew. The priest pretended not to know, because the priest also had a mother, and his mother had done the same things. And some silences are holy in their own way. The 7th month. The penance. The church required a special confession before childbirth, not because childbirth was sinful. Well, the sex that caused it was sinful, unless you only did it for procreation in the missionary position with your clothes on and no pleasure, which no one actually did, but because the church wanted to make sure your soul was clean before you died. So I went to confession. The priest sat behind the screen. I knelt on the cold stone. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It has been 3 weeks since my last confession. Tell me your sins, the priest said. Where to begin? I had coveted my neighbor's cow. I had lied to my husband about the honey I ate. I had thought about the traveling merchant with the kind eyes and the silver ring, and I had thought about him in a way that made my body remember that my body was still mine. I have had impure thoughts, I said. About whom? About no one specific. Liar, the priest said. Not mean, just factual. You are pregnant. Your humors are imbalanced. Your womb wanders. It is natural to have impure thoughts. The sin is not the thought. The sin is the action. Did you act? No, Father. Then say 3 Hail Marys and avoid the occasion of sin. 3 Hail Marys. For 9 months of growing a human, for the constant fear, for the certainty that I might die, for the bleeding, for the dirt eating, for the nights I lay awake calculating, whether my husband would remarry, and whether my daughter, if it was a daughter, would be safe with a stepmother. 3 Hail Marys. I said them. I left. I went home, and I put my hand on my belly, and I said something that was not a prayer but felt like one. If I die, you live. That's the deal. You don't get a choice. The 8th month. The quarrel. My husband wanted to call the priest to bless the birthing room. I refused. The priest brought incense. Incense gave me headaches. Also, the priest's hands wandered. Everyone knew it. No one said it. He's a man of God, my husband said. He's a man, I said. What's that supposed to mean? It means he has eyes, and I am naked in labor. And I do not want his eyes on me when I am open and bleeding and begging for death. My husband did not understand. He could not understand. He would never squat over a hole in a stool while 3 women held his legs and a 4th dug inside him for a soul. He would never feel his own body tear. He would never hear a midwife say, "Push again," when he had nothing left to push with. He was a man. Men watch, women do. The priest comes, my husband said, or I tell the village you are refusing the sacraments. You would not. Try me. I looked at him, really looked. This man I had married at 14, this man whose name I carried, this man who had never seen me bleed, except the once a month. And even then he looked away. You are afraid, I said. I am not. You are afraid I will die, and you are trying to control things you cannot control because you are a man, and men think control is the same as courage. He was quiet for a long time, and then he said, "Is it true about the merchant?" So he knew, or suspected, or had heard whispers. "The baby is yours," I said. "I swear it on my mother's grave." "Your mother is not dead." "Then I swear it on my own grave, the one I might be in next week." He held my face in his hands, rough hands, calloused from the plow. And he said, "Do not die. I cannot raise a child alone. Then help me keep the priest away." He nodded. And that night, for the first time in months, he put his head on my belly and talked to the baby. I could not hear the words, but I heard the sound. A man's voice, low and soft, promising things he could not promise, safe, warm, full, alive, the 9th month. The waiting in the 9th month is not a month. It is a series of false alarms, a cramp, a backache, a trickle of something that might be water or might be urine. You never know. You just wait. I sat by the fire and sewed a birthing shift, loose, open at the front. Easy to remove when it got soaked with blood and sweat and waters. I sewed it with red thread for protection, the women said. Red thread confuses the evil spirits. They see the red and think it is blood and stay away. I hung a rosary on the bedpost. Not for prayer, for grip, something to hold on to when the pain came. I gathered the herbs Marta had told me to gather. Raspberry leaf to tone the womb. Squaw vine to ease the passage. Birthwort to speed the labor, but only a little, because too much could kill both of us. I did not understand how a plant could be both medicine and poison. But that was most things in the Middle Ages. A little saved you, a little more killed you. The difference was a pinch, just a pinch. I said goodbye to my mother, not formally. We did not hug. We were not that kind of family. But I went to her house and I helped her churn butter, and I did not say anything about the baby, and she did not say anything about the baby. And then when I left, she put her hand on my shoulder and squeezed hard. Your grandmother, she said, she birthed 8, buried 4, lived to 60. She was lucky. She was stubborn. Same thing. My mother laughed. Then she stopped laughing. Then she said, "When it happens, do not scream. Screaming wastes air. Air is for pushing. Save your air." What do I do with the pain? You make friends with it. You cannot fight it. Fighting makes it worse. You must open yourself to the pain. Let it come. Let it go. You are a channel, not a dam. That sounds like heresy. Everything that is true sounds like heresy. She kissed my forehead. Then she went back to her butter. And I went back to my belly. And the waiting continued. The signs. You know it is coming when the baby drops. One morning you wake up and you can breathe again. The pressure on your lungs is gone, but the pressure on your pelvis is worse. You walk like a duck. You sit like a toad. You cannot find a position that does not hurt. Then the show. A glob of blood and mucus on your shift. Brownish, stringy, not the bright red of danger, the dark red of soon. Marta came when I sent my husband. She took one look at the show and said, "Tonight or tomorrow, eat something. You will need the strength." I could not eat. My stomach was a fist. "Eat," Marta said again. "Bread, broth, an egg. If you vomit, but try." I ate half a slice of bread. I kept it down. I called that a victory. The contractions started at noon, not the real ones, the practice ones, the ones that squeeze and release, like a hand testing a grip. The real ones will take your breath, Marta said. You will know them. I wanted to ask how long, but I knew the answer. As long as it takes. As long as God wills. As long as your body decides to keep fighting. So I waited, and I breathed, and I thought about Eve, that apple-eating bitch. I cursed her name with every false contraction, but quietly in my head, because the priest was not coming, but God was always listening. And God had a sense of humor, a dark one. The real pain began at midnight, not the gentle squeeze, the crush, the kind of pain that makes you forget your own name, that makes you promise things you cannot keep, that strips away everything you are until you are just a nervous system and a uterus and a prayer. Marta was there. Agnes was there. My mother was there. My husband was in the other room with the other men, drinking ale and pretending not to listen. I was on the birthing stool. It was a simple thing. 3 legs, a hole in the middle, a backrest. I squatted over it, holding on to ropes that hung from the ceiling beam. The ropes were old, worn smooth by the hands of 100 laboring women before me. I wondered how many of them had lived. I decided not to wonder. Breathe, Marta said. I am breathing. No, you are panting. Panting is for dogs. Breathe deep, slow, into your belly. My belly is full of baby. There's no room for air. Then breathe into your back. I did not know what that meant, but I tried, and somehow it helped. The pain was still there, but it was not in charge. The first hour, the denial. Maybe it is not real, I said. Marta laughed. You are leaking waters onto my floor. It is real. When did my waters break? 10 minutes ago, you were screaming. You did not notice. See, I looked down. There was a puddle, clear, slightly pink, and I had no memory of it happening. That was when I understood. Pain steals time. It steals memory. It steals the ability to think in straight lines. You become an animal, a mammal, a creature of instinct and grunt and claw. Push? I asked. No, Marta said. Not yet. You are only 4 fingers open. How many fingers do I need? 10? 10? 10 fingers wide, the width of a baby's head. We have a long way to go. I wanted to cry. I did not have the energy. The bargaining, At some point, I lost track. I started bargaining, not with God, with my own body. If you let me live, I whispered to my uterus, I will never have sex again. Another contraction, crushing, unending. Okay, I will have sex again, but not for pleasure, only for procreation, and only in the missionary position with no. Another contraction. Fine, for pleasure too. Just stop. Please stop. I will do anything. I will give anything. I will. You are bargaining. Marta said, that means you are progressing. Progressing toward what? Towards the end. That is not an answer. It is the only answer I have. I hated her in that moment. I loved her. I hated her. The pain made everything true at once. The fear. I stopped talking. The words ran out. There was only the pain and the space between pains. The space between pains was the most precious thing I had ever known. It lasted maybe a minute, sometimes two. In that minute, I would collapse against the ropes. I would close my eyes. I would try to remember what it felt like to not be in labor. I could not remember. Then the next wave would come, and I would grip the ropes, and I would make a sound, not a scream, deeper, lower, a sound from the bottom of my lungs, a sound that said, I am here, I am still here, you have not killed me yet. Agnes wiped my face with a damp cloth. The water was cold. I loved her for the cold. My mother held my hand. She did not say anything. She did not need to. Her hand said everything. I did this. Your grandmother did this. Your great-grandmother did this. Back and back and back to the first woman who ever felt this pain and decided to do it again. You are not alone. You are the whole chain. You are the link that did not break. Check me, I said to Marta. She checked, her hand inside me. The worst feeling. Not the pain, the invasion. The knowledge that someone else was in the most private part of you, measuring you, judging you, deciding whether you were failing or succeeding. 8 fingers, Marta said. 2 more. 2 more. But the head is not turned right. It is facing your belly. It should face your back. What does that mean? It means more pain, and maybe I have to turn it. How do you turn it? Marta showed me. She put both hands on my belly. She pressed. She pushed. She wrestled the baby inside me like a shepherd wrestling a lamb. I screamed. Not the low sound, the high sound. The sound that brought my husband running to the door. Stay out, Marta shouted. I heard, she is fine, go back to your ale. But, go. He went. I screamed again. Marta kept turning, and then, a pop, a release. The baby moved. The head turned. Good, Marta said, and now it is facing the right way. Now we push. The pushing is different. Contractions are something that happen to you. Pushing is something you do. It is the first time in the whole labor that you have any power. Take a breath, Marta said. Hold it. Bear down, like you were shitting a pumpkin. I pushed. Nothing. Harder. I pushed again. The baby moved. I felt it. A slide, a descent. Again. Again. The burning started, the ring of fire. They call it that because it feels like your flesh is being peeled away from your bones. Your perineum stretches, tears, sometimes all the way to your anus, sometimes forward to your clitoris, sometimes both. You do not care. You would let them cut you open with a knife if it meant the baby would come out. The head, Marta said. I see the head. My mother cried. Agnes cried. I did not cry. I pushed. The head is crowning. Do not push. What? Do not push. Let the head ease out. If you push too fast, you will tear. How do I not push? Pant! Pant like a dog, small breaths, fast. I panted. The burning was everything. The burning was the universe. The burning was God reminding me about Eve and the apple and all of it. Now push, Marta said. I pushed. The head came out. I felt it, round, hard, slippery. One more push, Marta said. The shoulders. Can I rest? The baby cannot rest. Push. I pushed. The shoulders turned. The baby slid. And suddenly, emptiness. The most profound emptiness I have ever known. My belly was gone. My pressure was gone. The pain was still there, the after pain, the tearing, the burning, but the presence was gone. The baby was out. The first breath. Marta caught the baby. It was covered in blood and vernix, a white, cheesy substance that smelled like nothing else on earth. The cord was still attached, pulsing blue and white. Is it alive? I asked. Marta did not answer. She wiped the baby's face. She cleared its mouth. She rubbed its back. Nothing. Please, I said, please. Marta rubbed harder. The baby coughed, sputtered, and then cried. A thin, reedy, furious cry. The most beautiful sound I have ever heard. It is alive, Marta said. Her hands were shaking. I had never seen Marta's hands shake. Is it a boy or a girl? Marta lifted the baby, looked between its legs. It is a girl, a daughter, a dowry, a negotiation, a future of labor and blood and pain and love. Give her to me, I said. Marta placed the girl on my chest. She was slick. She was furious. She was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. Hello, little thief, I whispered. You ate my bones. You stole my teeth. You made me bleed and tear and scream. And I would do it all again. Right now. This second. For you. The baby stopped crying. She looked at me. Newborns cannot see well. Something about the light and the eyes and the 9 months of darkness. But she looked at me, and I looked at her. And the bargain was complete. The aftermath. The third stage. The placenta came 20 minutes later. A sudden cramp, a push, and a slimy purple-gray mass slid out of me. Marta examined it. She turned it over. She checked for pieces. If any stays inside, you will rot, she said. Fever, death. Is it whole? It is whole. She put it in a bowl. Later she would bury it under the apple tree. That was the custom. The tree would bear sweeter fruit. The girl would bear sweeter children. I did not believe it. I did not disbelieve it. I was too tired to believe anything. Marta tied the cord with linen thread. 2 knots, close to the baby, close to me. Then she cut between them with the knife she had boiled in wine. The baby did not feel it, no nerves in the cord. Now, Marta said, you must push again, hard, to close your womb. I pushed. Marta pressed on my belly, a gush of blood, another, then slow. If the bleeding does not stop, call me, she said. If you soak more than 3 rags in an hour, call me. If you smell rot, call me. If you see green, call me. What if I see nothing? Then you are lucky. Rest. She cleaned the baby, washed off the blood and vernix, wrapped her in swaddling bands, tight so her limbs would grow straight, so she would not startle herself awake. I watched. I had never been so tired. I had never been so happy. My husband came in. He looked at the baby. He looked at me. He looked at the blood-stained straw. A girl, he said. A girl, I said. He nodded. Then he picked up his daughter, held her like she was made of glass. Her name, he asked. We had talked about names, boys' names, never girls' names. Eve, I said. He looked at me. The sinner? The mother. The first one who did this. The first one who knew this pain and kept going anyway. He looked at the baby. At Eve. Eve, he said, trying it on his tongue. Eve. The baby opened her eyes, and everyone in the room, Marta, Agnes, my mother, my husband, me, everyone felt something shift. Not a miracle, not a vision, just a small, ordinary, impossible thing, a new person, a new link, a new chance. The priest came the next morning. He baptized her. Holy water on her forehead, salt on her tongue, a name in the ledger, a soul saved from the crossroads. And then he left. And the women left, and my husband went back to the fields. And I lay in the blood straw with my daughter on my chest, and I listened to her breathe. In, out, the sound of the future, the sound of everything. Let me tell you about the rest. Because birth was only the beginning. The baby came, yes. The blood stopped, maybe. But then you had to live. You had to feed that screaming, greedy little mouth from your own shrinking body. You had to get up 3 days later and churn the butter because the butter would not churn itself. You had to go back to the fields with the baby tied to your chest and a rag between your legs to catch the lochia, that brown, endless discharge that smelled like a slaughterhouse. And then after a month or 2 or 3, your husband would look at you a certain way, and you would remember the pain, and you would remember the fear, and you would remember the blood, and you would open your legs anyway. Because that was the deal. That was always the deal. I had 6 more after Eve. 6. 3 lived to adulthood. 3 did not. The first one after Eve, a boy. Thomas, he came fast, too fast. The cord was wrapped around his neck 3 times. Marta cut it while he was still inside me. She pulled him out blue. She breathed into his mouth. She slapped his feet. He pinked up. He cried. He lived to be 14, then took a fever and died in 3 days. I held his hand while he shook. I was still holding it when he stopped. The second one after Eve, another girl. Agnes, named for my friend. She came feet first. Breech. Marta had to reach inside and turn her while I screamed for the saints and the devil and anyone who would listen. Agnes lived. Agnes grew. Agnes married a tanner and moved 3 villages away. I saw her twice after that. Twice in 20 years. That was normal. You raised them to leave. The third one after Eve, another boy. Stillborn. I do not want to talk about it, but I will, because that is what you asked for. The truth. He was due at Candlemas. The labor started on time, but the pains were wrong. Weak. Far apart. Marta said, something is not right. She listened to my belly with her ear pressed flat. She shook her head. The baby is not moving, she said. What do you mean not moving? I mean I have not felt it kick in 2 hours. And you have not either, have you? I had not. I had been so focused on the pain that I had not noticed the silence. We waited. The labor went on for 18 hours. The pains never got strong, never got close together. My body was trying to push out a dead thing, and it knew. The body always knows. When he came out, he was purple, not the blue of a cord accident, the purple of death. He had been dead for days, maybe a week. Marta cut the cord. She wrapped him in a scrap of linen. She handed him to me. Hold him, she said. You will want to remember that you held him. I held him. He was cold. He was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a tiny nose like his father's, eyes closed forever. He needs a name, I said. No, Marta said, the unbaptized cannot be named. Then I name him anyway. In my heart. in the place the church cannot reach, then you are a heretic. I have been a heretic since the first contraction. His name is John, after my father. I held John until he grew cold against my chest. Then Marta took him. She would bury him at the crossroads. No marker, no prayer, just a small bundle in unconsecrated ground. The priest would not come. The bells would not ring. John would wait at the edge of the world until Judgment Day, when the angels would sort the unbaptized into what? No one knew. The church did not say. The church only said they could not go to heaven. Limbo? Maybe. A place of no pain but no God. A nursery without light. I dream about John sometimes. He is always the same age, 3 days dead. He is always reaching for me, and I am always reaching back, and I never quite touch him. That is grief. That is medieval grief. You do not get to mourn properly. You do not get a funeral. You get a hole at dawn and a warning not to tell anyone because the baby was not a person. The church said so. The law said so. But my arms said otherwise. And my arms were right. The milk breastfeeding was not a choice. It was survival. Cow's milk killed infants. No one knew about pasteurization, but everyone knew that babies fed on animal milk died more often. So you fed them from your own body, or you found a wet nurse. I was my own wet nurse. Eve latched badly. She had a tongue tie, a little flap of skin under her tongue that Marta snipped with a thumbnail. That was the treatment. No numbing, just a quick cut and a prayer against infection. The first weeks were agony. My nipples cracked. They bled. I would cry every time Eve latched. Marta gave me a salve of beeswax and goose grease and something she called the milk of the poppy for the worst nights. It helped. It also made me sleep so deep I almost rolled onto the baby. After that, I stopped using it. Pain was safer than death. My mother told me that in her village, women rubbed their nipples with a rough cloth before the baby came to toughen them. I tried that. It did not help. It just hurt in advance. After about a month, the pain stopped. The cracks healed. The milk flowed. And I learned something strange. The letdown reflex. When Eve cried, even when she was in another room, my breasts would suddenly tighten and leak. My body knew. My body was not mine anymore. It was hers. It would be hers for 2 years, 3 years, as long as she nursed. The church said to wean at 2. The peasant women said wean when the next baby came. The noble women never nursed at all. They passed their babies to wet nurses so they could get pregnant again faster. A noble woman was a brood mare. A peasant woman was a milk cow. We were all animals. The only difference was the quality of the stable. The lying in. After each birth, I stayed inside for 1 month. The church called it churching, purification. The women called it the lying in. You did not go out, you did not cook, you did not work. Other women brought you food. Your husband slept in the barn. You rested, you bled, you fed the baby. It was the only rest I ever got. 4 weeks of sitting by the fire, stitching tiny clothes, watching the snow or the rain or the sun through the window. 4 weeks of being treated like something fragile. 4 weeks of pretending I was not already planning the next pregnancy. On the 30th day, I went to church. The priest met me at the door. He wore a purple stole. He sprinkled me with holy water. He said a prayer of thanksgiving that I had survived. Then he led me inside, but not to the altar. Women who had just given birth were unclean. I had to kneel at the back near the door, as far from the sacrament as possible. Give thanks, the priest said. that God has delivered you from the pains of childbirth, I gave thanks. I did not say what I was thinking. God did not deliver me. Marta delivered me. Agnes delivered me. My mother delivered me. God sat on his throne and watched. The women got their hands dirty. But I did not say that. I said, thanks be to God. And I went home. The next pregnancy. You want to know how soon? As soon as your husband came back to your bed. For me, that was usually 3 months after the lying in. Sometimes 4. Sometimes the baby was still nursing. And my milk made my womb less fertile. That was the only natural spacing we had. Wet nurses, no. Weaning, maybe. But most women did not know that nursing delayed fertility. They just knew that sometimes they got pregnant quickly and sometimes slowly. I got pregnant quickly. Between Eve and Thomas, 10 months. Between Thomas and Agnes, 14 months. Between Agnes and the stillborn, 8 months. Between the stillborn and the next girl, Cecily, 11 months. Cecily lived. Cecily married a miller. Cecily died in childbirth at 22. Her baby lived, a girl, named for me. That is how it went. A chain of women. Some links broke. Some held. The bleeding after. Every time I gave birth, I bled for weeks. The lochia started red, bright, arterial, terrifying, then pink, then brown, then yellow, then nothing. If it stayed red, you called Marta. If it smelled like rotting meat, you called the priest for last rites. I never got childbed fever. I was lucky. Half the women I knew got it at least once. High fever, chills, a belly hard as a board, a discharge like fish broth. They died in 3 days. Their babies died with them or starved or went to a wet nurse who charged too much and cared too little. Marta said the fever came from bad air. She said to keep the room hot and the windows closed. She did not know about germs. No one knew about germs. They would not know for another 400 years. So they closed the windows and lit fires and made the birthing room a sauna of sweat and blood and bacteria. And the women died, and no one understood why. Some midwives washed their hands. Marta did. Not because she knew about infection. Because she said, blood on my hands makes the baby stick. So she rinsed with water and wine. That probably saved more lives than she ever knew. But she died in a plague year, so no one ever thanked her. I stopped bleeding when I was 47. Not the monthly bleeding that had stopped 2 years before. The bleeding of childbirth stopped because I stopped having children. My husband had died. The harvest had been bad. I was old. I was a grandmother. My womb was a dried up gourd. I did not miss it. I did not miss the pain. I did not miss the fear. I did not miss the taste of dirt and the weight of a dead boy in my arms. But I missed the beginning. I missed the moment when the baby first kicked. I missed the moment when the head crowned and Marta said, "One more push." I missed the first cry. The first latch. The smell of a newborn's head, like warm bread and milk and something older than bread, something that smelled like before. You cannot explain that to someone who has not done it. You cannot explain why a woman would go through that horror, that blood and tearing and screaming and risk of death, and then do it again and again and again. We did it because the baby was worth it. Not every baby. Some babies died. Some babies were monsters. Some babies grew up to be cruel or stupid or just absent. But the possibility, the chance that this one might be the one who held your hand when you died, who remembered your name, who carried your blood into a future you would never see. That chance was worth everything. The grandmother midwives. When I became a grandmother, I also became a midwife. Not officially. The church did not license me. The village did. Because I had done it, I had survived. I had watched. I had learned. I learned from Marta. I learned from my mother. I learned from every woman who let me hold her hand while she screamed. I learned that raspberry leaf tones the womb. I learned that squaw vine eases the passage. I learned that a motherwort tincture stops the bleeding. I learned that ergot of rye starts the contractions, but also kills the baby if you use too much. I learned that the best position is squatting, not lying down. Lying down is for the doctor's convenience, not the woman's body. I learned that you must never, ever pull the cord. You wait. You wait for the placenta to detach on its own. You wait for the mother to push it out. If you pull the womb inside out. And then the mother bleeds to death in front of you while you hold her womb in your hand like a failed harvest. I saw that happen once to a midwife named Hilda. She pulled. The womb came out. The woman bled white in 10 minutes. Hilda never delivered another baby. She went to a nunnery. She spent the rest of her life on her knees. Do not judge her. She was tired. It was the 5th delivery that week. The plague had taken half the village. She was trying to save time. And a woman died. Midwives carried that weight. Every dead mother, every stillborn, every baby who lived but lost its mother and then starved because no one else would feed it. We carried them in our bones. We carried them in our dreams. We carried them to our own graves. The herbs. Let me tell you about the herbs because they matter. Lady's mantle. Alchemilla. The dew on its leaves was said to be alchemical silver. We made a tea from the whole plant. It stopped bleeding. It tightened the womb. It was the first thing I gave any woman who hemorrhaged. Shepherd's purse. Capsella. The seeds look like little purses. The tea works faster than lady's mantle, but not as long. I used it for the gush that would not stop. Birthwort. Aristolochia. Dangerous. A little speeds labor. A little more kills the mother. I used it only once for a woman whose labor had stalled for 2 days. She lived. The baby lived. I never used it again because I did not want to know how close I had come to killing her, sir. Squaw vine, Michella repens. The native women taught it to the colonists, but in my village we had our own version, a creeping vine with red berries. We called it partridge berry. The tea tastes like wintergreen. It prepares the womb for birth. I drank it for a month before every delivery after the stillborn. I do not know if it helped, but it made me feel like I was doing something. Rue, ruta, abortifacient, illegal, burned. But every midwife knew where to find it. Every midwife used it when a woman came to her in tears and said, "I cannot have another. I will die. I will kill myself, please." And the midwife would look at her, this woman with 6 children and a starving belly and a husband who would not stop. And the midwife would go into the woods and come back with rue. I used it 3 times, 3 women, 3 early pregnancies. They bled, they passed the tissue. They lived. They never told anyone. Neither did I. That is a secret I've carried for 40 years. That is a sin I will answer for on Judgment Day, if there is a Judgment Day. But I will say to God what I said to those women. You gave them the womb. You gave them the hunger. You gave them the husband. I just gave them the rue. If that is a sin, then you should not have made the rue so effective. The Reformation came, then the Enlightenment, then the doctors, the men with forceps and lectures and instruments of steel. They said midwives were ignorant. They said we were witches. They said we killed more women than we saved. They were wrong. But they had the power, and the universities and the printing presses. By the time I was an old woman, the village was hiring a male surgeon for difficult births. He came on a horse. He charged a silver penny. He wore gloves that he did not change between patients. He used forceps that crushed more heads than they saved. He washed his hands in cold water, if he washed them at all. And the women died, more than before, but the men wrote books, and the books said that childbirth was safer with doctors, and everyone believed the books. We lost the circle. We lost the passing of knowledge from hand to hand, from mouth to ear, from mother to daughter. We lost the herbs because the doctors called them poison. We lost the birthing stool because the doctors said women should lie on their backs with their feet in stirrups, a position that makes labor longer and more painful and more likely to tear, but it was easier for the doctor to see. So that became the way. We lost the woman who had done it herself. We replaced her with the man who had only watched. Do not think I am bitter. I am old. Bitterness is for people who still have time to change things. I have no time. I have only memory. And my memory says the women knew. The women always knew. And the men stole it. I was 63. The mother was 15. Her name was Magda. She was my neighbor's granddaughter. She'd been married at 13. Raped, really, but they called it marriage. This was her second pregnancy. The first had ended in a miscarriage at 5 months. She had bled for 6 weeks. She had almost died. Now she was in labor again. The baby was transverse, lying sideways across her womb. I could feel the shoulder, not the head. There was no way this baby would come out alive. The only question was whether Magda would come out alive. I did what Marta had taught me. I tried to turn the baby. I pushed on Magda's belly. I reached inside my old, gnarled fingers and tried to find the feet. If I could get the feet, I could pull. Breech was survivable. Transverse was not. I could not find the feet. The baby was stuck. The waters had broken 12 hours ago. The shoulder was wedged in the pelvis. Every contraction pushed the baby tighter. Magda, I said, I cannot turn it. She looked at me with eyes that were already leaving. What does that mean? It means we have to cut it out or you will both die. Cut it out? They will have to cut your belly, open you, take the baby, then sew you closed. I have never done it. The surgeon in the next town has done it twice. Both mothers died. So I die either way. Maybe. Or maybe you live, but the baby will not live. The baby is already dying. I can hear it in the heartbeat, slow, irregular. Magda was quiet for a long time. The contraction came. She gripped the ropes. She did not scream. She had no air for screaming. Cut it out, she said. But first baptize it. Pour water on its head while it is still inside me. So it goes to heaven. That was heresy. Baptism requires the baby to be born. But I was a heretic. I had been a heretic since the first contraction of my first labor. I took the holy water from the shelf. I poured it over Magda's belly. I said the words, I baptize you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Then I sent my son, Eve's brother, grown now, to fetch the surgeon. The surgeon came on his horse. He brought his saws and his hooks and his needles. He looked at Magda. He looked at me. She will die, he said. Try anyway, I said. He cut her open. She screamed. He pulled out a baby girl, blue and still. He gave her to me. I rubbed her. I breathed into her. Nothing. She was dead. but she had been baptized. She would not go to the crossroads. The surgeon sewed Magda closed. She bled. He put hot irons on the wound to stop the bleeding. She screamed again. Then she stopped screaming. Then she stopped breathing. I held Magda's hand until her mother came. Her mother screamed. Her mother cursed me. Her mother said, I had killed her daughter. Maybe I had. Maybe I should have let the baby die inside her and cut it out in pieces. Maybe that would have saved her. Maybe nothing would have saved her. I do not know. That is the thing about medieval medicine. You never know. You do your best. You pray. You watch them die. You bury them. You go home and you wash your hands and you eat your bread and you lie down in your bed and you wait for the next one to come knocking at your door. That was my last birth. After Magda, I put away my herbs. I gave my birthing stool to a younger woman. I told her what I knew. She listened. She nodded. She said, I will do better. She did not do better. No one does better. You just do different. And different is not the same as better. I am 90 now. That is old. That is impossibly old. No one in my village has lived this long since the plague. My teeth are gone. My back is a question mark. My hands are claws. From years of spinning and pulling and wiping and holding. But I remember the smell of the birthing room. Blood and sweat and straw and the sharp tang of fear. I remember the sound of a baby's first cry. The relief, the joy, the collapse. I remember the silence of a baby that would not cry. I remember the weight of a dead infant in my arms. Light. So terribly light. I remember the women. All the women. The ones who lived and the ones who died and the ones who lived but wished they had died. I remember their faces. I remember their screams. I remember the names they gave their children and the names they never got to say because the priest said the unbaptized could not be named. I remember Marta. I remember her hands inside me. I remember her saying, push, when I had nothing left. I remember her burying my stillborn son in the dark. I remember her dying of the plague, alone because no one would go near her. I remember standing at the edge of her yard and throwing her food, and watching her take it with hands already black. I remember her calling my name. I remember not going to her. I remember the shame. I remember my mother. I remember her telling me not to scream. I remember her holding my hand. I remember her dying of a fever 3 days after my sister's wedding. I remember washing her body. I remember the blood that still came from her womb because she had been pregnant again, too old, too tired, and the baby had died inside her and rotted and killed her. I remember cutting her open to get the baby out for burial. I remember holding my dead brother. I remember naming him anyway. I remember my daughter Eve. She is 60 now. She has gray hair. She has a daughter of her own, and that daughter has a daughter. 4 generations. I held the newest one yesterday. She smelled like warm bread and milk. She looked at me with eyes that could not see, but somehow recognized something. An old woman, a link, a chain. I told her mother, my granddaughter, do not let the doctors take this from you. Do not lie on your back. Do not let them cut you without reason. Do not be afraid of the pain. The pain is not the enemy. The enemy is fear. My granddaughter laughed. You sound like a witch. I am a witch. I am a heretic. I am a midwife. I am a mother. I am a grandmother. I am a woman. And I am still here. What was childbirth really like in the Middle Ages? It was blood. It was terror. It was the closest thing to death that does not actually kill you. It was the most dangerous journey a woman ever took. And she took it again and again and again because she had no choice. It was also love, the most desperate, irrational, bone-deep love you can imagine. Love that makes you eat dirt and drink poison and let someone cut you open. Love that makes you hold a dead baby and name it anyway. Love that makes you do it all over again, even though you know that this time might be the time you do not come back. It was community. Women holding women. Women wiping women. Women burying women. Women passing down knowledge that the men would later steal and call their own. It was faith. Not faith in God. God was a spectator. Faith in the woman next to you. Faith in the herbs. Faith in your own body, even when your body was trying to kill you. It was loss. So much loss. Half the children dead by 5. 1 in 10 mothers dead in childbirth. The rest carrying scars, prolapses, fistulas, tears that never healed, pain that never stopped. And it was survival. Because somehow, despite everything, the human race kept going. The babies kept coming. The mothers kept pushing. The midwives kept catching. We did not have anesthesia. We did not have antibiotics. We did not have clean hospitals or skilled surgeons or any of the things you have now. We had each other. We had a leather strap to bite. We had a root and a prayer and a woman who had done it before, and we lived. Or we died. But either way, we did it together. So when you hear about the Middle Ages, do not think of knights and castles. Think of a woman squatting over a hole in a stool, gripping ropes, screaming into the dark. Think of the midwife with blood up to her elbows, saying, "One more push." Think of the baby's first cry. Think of the mother's last breath. That was the Middle Ages. That was every age until very recently. And in some places that is still the age. Do not forget us. We were not weak. We were not ignorant. We were not passive victims of a brutal time. We were the ones who opened our legs and let the future in. That is what childbirth was really like. Now you know.